All right. We are back. Episode 15 of the Feel for the Game podcast on a rainy Tuesday night with some interesting Tuesday night football. We've got James Madison taking on Texas State right now. I think they just went up 14 to nothing. So we've got that live right now. Interesting game. James Madison's still in contention for the playoffs, is an unsung sneak in dark horse team. But we had a blast in Nashville this past weekend at a really awesome matchup. We got to go see Vanderbilt take on Missouri. Final score there, 17 to 10. Vanderbilt takes home a very close win. It was a lot closer than it looked, given the final play of the game being a Hail Mary that ended up being caught on inside of the half-yard line, being ruled complete after further review. As time expired, the game ended. Missouri did not get a chance to punch that in, and Vanderbilt comes away with a huge win against another ranked team at home. I had a blast. I'm glad we got to finally go see Diego Pavia play a football game.
It was a really fun experience, and it was kind of weird being at Vanderbilt too because I've watched a bunch of games on there on TV over the years, but I never thought I'd be there just because they were always not good and stuff. But being there was kind of surreal, and they were this good.
Yeah, I think it was really neat. I kind of said as much during the game, just being in that stadium. Like, I think the last time I legitimately paid attention to a game where Ole Miss was playing at Vanderbilt was, I think, when we lost there. I can't remember, maybe even 2018 or 2017, but we went in there and lost. I think it was when they had Derek Mason and Kyle Shermer. But I remember that stadium looking so small, and they didn't even have that many fans. And I was just like, I can't believe we lost that game. It's just that was the Vanderbilt of old. You didn't want to lose to Vanderbilt. It's not a good look. That wasn't our best Ole Miss team, but going there and watching Vanderbilt be the home favorite top 10 team, like that just didn't feel right. I mean, it was awesome. Like I really enjoyed it, but that definitely was historical as we talked about last week. I think that's the first time basically that in this century almost since Vanderbilt's been a top 10 football team and getting to win back-to-back top 15 matchups at home. I don't know that they've ever done that. So this was a big week for Vanderbilt football, and it really kind of came down to a couple of plays in this game that capitalized on Vanderbilt's side. That one fumble on the missed handoff exchange from Missouri, I think it was in the third quarter, possibly. When that happened, that was a huge momentum shift. Vanderbilt gets down there and comes away with points. They broke off an 85-yard touchdown in this game. Um, the final score was 17 to 10. So that touchdown ended up being a crucial score in this game. I thought that the quarterback play was a really interesting metric in this game because Diego Pavia did not play his best football. Missouri's defense limited him very well. I thought they got good pressure. They created some timely turnovers. I didn't think he had too many bad passes in this game. There were some sketchy ones. The interception really wasn't even that sketchy. It just got batted up in the air. But he didn't have his best performance. He had one of the best plays I've seen him have all season get taken back from a penalty. He reversed field like twice on a goal line touchdown run, which had like two different holding calls on it, which
I
was
think they called
unfortunate.
three holdings on that. It was something crazy.
It was probably one of the coolest runs I've seen in a while, but that the stadium was going berserk. Even though he had already, we everybody kind of knew it was a penalty, so they were going to call it back. He still played that play 110% and ended up putting the ball in the end zone, which was like, I mean, it. He can do that kind of stuff. Like just because there was a penalty doesn't mean that that doesn't really count for something. Like he's an absolute stud, and any guy who can make those kinds of plays deserves to be in the Heisman conversation like he is. But I still don't feel like he had his best game. As far as being a passer in this game, it was very average, pedestrian numbers. I think he had one touchdown and a pick. And then running the ball, had one of his lower games total wise of the season. They got a lot of pressure on him, got to him in the backfield a couple times, but he played just well enough for this football team to have a chance and be in control there at the end.
I think there is something to be said too that he can play that way, and Vandy can still beat a top 15 team.
Yeah,
Last year, that wouldn't have been the case.
that plays a lot into my pick for their game going into this week, which I'll get to. But the fact that they've shown that they can win different ways, and we've talked about this with other teams, like A&M, for instance. Like they've won in shootouts all season, they've won in blowouts, they've won in slugouts, they've won in all sorts of different kinds of games. Vanderbilt's starting to do the same thing. I haven't seen them get into a big shootout yet. I don't know that this team is going to end up in a shootout. Not only do I not see them scoring 45, I don't see anybody scoring 45 on them unless they have an injury at quarterback or something. But I think it's just a really competitive football team that controls the game and controls the clock really well. The play calling is very timely. It reminds me a lot of Ole Miss when it's time to make big plays. It's not just the players going out of their way and making an average play look really good. It's really good players with really good play calling making something really great happen. So I love what I'm seeing from Clark Lee and that staff and what they're able to do with the guys they've got. They just make it happen. So I have a hard time picking against Vanderbilt in some of these games moving forward, but they look great. Let's talk about Missouri a little bit. Obviously, Bo Previously got hurt late in this game. I think that it came out that he had a dislocated ankle at the goal line. No bone fractures or anything like that, so nothing severe. There's a slight chance he comes back at some point in the postseason, depending on where they end up, which is most likely going to be in like the Outback Bowl, sadly for them. But I would assume we see him maybe one more time this season, if not twice, if he plays against Arkansas to end the season. But that stunk. I hated that for Missouri, but Matt Zollers came in and played some pretty daggum good football in the last quarter of this football game.
I was impressed with him. He was a little bit indecisive, but I mean, you would expect that from a dude, a true freshman, getting thrown into a game like that. But I like what I saw. I think they'll be in decent hands in the few games that they have to start him.
I was worried because Sam Horn was their backup going into the season, and they had two guys. It was Bud Pribula and Sam Horn that were dual threat guys that we didn't really know much about, unproven. Sam Horn goes in. I think he had like a huge run on his first play. It's like 20 yards or something. And the next play, he got hurt. Like bad break. I think he broke his tibia.
This was week 1 against Central Arkansas, wasn't
Literally,
it?
it was the first game. And so he goes out, and everybody's like, okay, Bo Pribula season. It's time for him to roll. And he did. And he took off, and we kind of forgot about Sam Horn. And then Bo Pribula goes down in this game, and I'm like, oh crap! Like Missouri doesn't really have a guy, do they? We were wondering who the heck they were even going to put on the field because I didn't know who Matt Zollers was. And one of the Missouri fans sitting next to us kind of explained to me that he was a new recruit coming in and hadn't really seen too much of him this season. So I figured that the game was going to get out of hand as soon as he got in the game. But I mean, he played relatively well considering how good Vandy's defense had played up to that point. Um, he had several throws that were really impressive to me. The fourth and long as the game was on the line. Usually that is a spot where veteran quarterbacks don't end up finding somebody and the game is over. Those are high pressure situations where you can't even count on your veteran quarterbacks in this sport to make those kinds of plays sometimes. And he finds an open receiver across the middle. It was a complete seed and gave them a chance to win the game with that Hail Mary or at least tie it if they were to have converted. And they were half a yard from doing so. If they make that Hail Mary, we're having a completely different conversation about who the MVP of this game is. And at the end of the day, Vanderbilt's run game ended up being what separated this. But I thought Zollers played really well. I'm looking forward to see how he plays against some other teams in full games moving forward. Now that some teams maybe have a little bit of tape on him, we'll see how he plays. But jumping into this game late with a little bit of a surprise to Vanderbilt's defense, not really knowing how to defend against him, he played really well. But yeah, I had a great time. This game was a lot of fun. It was low scoring, but if you really love college football, you can even enjoy these games. I feel like the big plays didn't always have to be touchdowns in this game. There were a lot of momentum swingers that weren't always field goals and touchdowns, um, especially that turnover where that Vandy player came down and stole that handoff. That was probably the biggest play in the game. And the crowd, I was impressed, was very loud. Never thought I would say that about a Vanderbilt game, but had a great time in Nashville. That was the first time I've been in Nashville in probably over a decade, and it was really cool. Had great food. Um, People were really nice. That was one thing I appreciated a lot about the atmosphere was that overall I didn't deal with any unpleasant people. If anything, I got heckled more by the Missouri fans I saw in the tunnel for wearing an Ole Miss polo than I did by any of the Vanderbilt fans. And of course, they weren't like super rude about it or mean, but like I didn't have a negative comment from a single Vanderbilt fan the whole game.
Well, there's one negative thing about Vanderbilt from this game, and that was them not letting us bring our chairbacks into the stadium.
I
That
didn't even
was
think about
freaking
that.
stupid.
No, we get to the gate, and sure enough, we bring our chair backs because we knew it was going to be bleacher style seats. And I figured that, I mean, no one's going to try to stop you from being comfortable at a football game. Like, why on earth would you do that? If you're not going to pay to have nice seating in your stadium, why on earth would you stop people from traveling to your stadium with better options? Which we get to the gate, and we're walking in, and the guy's like, I don't think you can bring that in here. And I looked at him, I was like, the chairbacks, we can't bring the chairbacks in there. He's like, I don't know, let me check. And this little short lady comes up to us, and she's like, no, no, you can't bring that in here. And I'm like, why? Like, what are we doing? Who are we hurting by bringing our chairbacks into this stadium? Like, I'm not bringing a bomb into your stadium. I'm not carrying a knife inside the back compartment of the seat. Like, if you want to check it, you can. But she made us go and she said we had to go put them in a locker somewhere. But I wasn't about to go do that, so we hid them behind some wall by the stadium and ended up getting them afterwards. But that was completely ridiculous. I get that there's clear bag policies and stuff like that, so you can't bring bags, but I don't know why on earth you couldn't bring a chair back into a stadium. Anyway, that's a long enough rant about chair backs, but that was probably the only negative thing that happened on the whole trip. I had a great time. That was just ridiculous. So, Vanderbilt, figure that out. Either get better seating or let us bring our chair backs into the stadium next time because that was stupid.